Hello, I'm Darren Chetty, and I'm one of 11 contributors to this book called The Mab, based on the Mabinogi stories, the original stories being found in the National Library of Wales. This book's edited by Matt Brown and Eloise Williams, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things to think about when trying to write your own version of a folktale. The first thing to think about when you're telling a traditional folktale is that word traditional. We can get really hung up on that and think that we have to keep everything just as it always was. But was it always the same? Traditional stories usually started out as oral stories. The people telling those stories would have changed things, but kept the essence of the story. So, what is that essence? We're going to need to think carefully about the most important elements, but then we can play around with other bits. It may even be that rather than tell the traditional story, we want to do something that changes it deliberately. That's fine too. As long as we know what we're trying to do, we can then think about how to do it. One of the things that we should think about if we're retelling a traditional tale is language. Now, at first, you might want to just keep the language of the story as it was, but if you're doing that, you might end up just copying out the story and not retelling it at all. It might be that you want to update the language, make it feel more contemporary, or you might be writing for a different age group and want to change the language so that people understand exactly what it is. At the same time, there may be parts of the story where the language is really important. Maybe it's a particular phrase that really feels like it's part of the story, or something that's repeated throughout the story. So keeping parts of the language of the original text might suit your purposes. But taking language seriously is the first step. The third thing to think about, and it seems an obvious one, is what is the story really about? That can be more complicated than it seems, but it's going to help us to make decisions about what we can cut out without affecting the story, maybe even improving it, and what we need to keep in so that the story still works in the way that it did before. So getting a sense of what's important at the story, maybe it's the events, maybe it's key information about characters, maybe it's even the setting, and what we can let slip or modify or change and still keep that core of the story in place. What is the story about?